In the quiet town of Horicon, Wisconsin, where winter cloaks the streets in silence and the night comes quickly, stands a house shrouded in whispers and fear. The type of house you walk past without a second thought until you know what happened inside. Between 1986 and 1988, something unfolded here that defies logic and explanation. A tale so unsettling, so profoundly disturbing, that to this day it lingers in the minds of those who lived it and those brave enough to revisit it. This isn't a campfire story. This is the documented account of the Tallman family and their house, the place that would become known as the Tallman House. Prepare yourself, because the next minutes may change the way you look at your own home, your own hallway, your own shadows. It began with something ordinary, a bunk bed, nothing sinister, nothing unusual, bought secondhand from a neighbor. Alan Tallman had no reason to suspect it carried anything more than chipped paint and a few loose screws. But from the moment it entered the house, something changed. A subtle shift in the air, as if the house itself held its breath. The first night, their son awoke screaming. He spoke of a red-eyed creature crouched beneath the bed. Alan, a practical man, brushed it off. Nightmares, growing pains. But within days, the house began to rebel. Clocks stopped without cause. A radio, unplugged, screamed static. Doors slammed in still air. Lights flickered. The television glitched between channels, never settling, showing blurred faces and screaming mouths that weren't part of any show. The family began to notice things missing. Small items at first. A hairbrush, a single sock, a Bible. Then they would reappear in impossible places. Once, Alan found his screwdriver buried deep in the freezer. Was it forgetfulness, stress, or something else? The children spoke in whispers, afraid to be left alone. They said their toys moved at night, that voices came from the closet, low and raspy. Debbie started seeing shadows out of the corner of her eye, tall, too tall, even for a man. The dog refused to enter the hallway. It growled at the walls. Then came the physical encounters. Alan reported hearing footsteps on the roof, not scurrying like a raccoon, but heavy, deliberate steps. One night, he climbed onto the roof with a flashlight, expecting to find kids or an animal. He found nothing, just the fresh imprints of large feet, leading to the edge and vanishing. They called in electricians, plumbers, inspectors. No one found anything wrong. So Alan began documenting everything, writing it down, recording sounds on an old cassette tape. And what he captured was unnatural. Low frequencies, droning tones, whispers that seemed to say his name. The house grew darker, not just in mood, but physically. Light bulbs dimmed faster. Sunlight seemed to bend around the windows. The family began to lose time. Hours would pass unaccounted for. Debbie once put a pot of coffee on at 9 a.m. She blinked, and it was dark outside. The coffee hadn't even started brewing. Alan's health began to decline. He developed migraines, night sweats. He would wake with scratches along his chest, small but bleeding. Then there were the dreams. Every night, vivid dreams of a hooded figure standing at the foot of their bed, watching, breathing, and the children began to draw it without ever having seen their parents' nightmares. It was always the same: hollow eyes, no face, just blackness. On a cold November evening, Alan's sister visited with her infant child. That night, the baby cried uncontrollably. At exactly 3:13 a.m., every light in the house turned on. A loud bang echoed from the children's room. They rushed in. The bunk bed had moved 6 inches away from the wall. A crucifix above it lay shattered on the floor. Alan moved the bed to the basement the next day, and that night, the basement flooded. The activity escalated. One of the kids began speaking in another voice. Lower, monotone. He would speak of things he shouldn't know, events from decades earlier, names of people he'd never met. They burned sage. They prayed. Nothing worked. Debbie called in a local pastor. He blessed the home, said prayers in every room. But as he walked into the children's room, he stopped cold. He later told the family he felt watched. He refused to return. The family tried to carry on, but the energy became unbearable. There were cold spots in the hallway, so intense your breath would fog. Alan took to sleeping with a Bible under his pillow and a baseball bat beside the bed. Not out of fear of burglars, but something worse. Something without skin, without mercy. Eventually, Alan snapped. He smashed the bunk bed with a hammer, built a fire, and threw the pieces in one by one. He watched it burn all night, and after that, the house went still. Not silent, just still, like a beast that had fed and was now sleeping. But the family knew they were living on borrowed time. One more night, and something would claim them. They packed what they could. They left the house behind. Alan told no one where they were going. They disappeared into the quiet Midwest. In 1988, their story hit national television. Unsolved Mysteries. Journalists, skeptics, and believers descended on Horicon. But the house remained quiet. Subsequent families reported no activity, as if the entity had left or gone dormant. But paranormal experts suggest the opposite. Some believe the house is a beacon, a spiritual gateway. Not every person is a match, but every few decades, something clicks, something awakens, and it starts all over again. To this day, no scientific explanation exists. No one knows what was attached to the bunk bed, or as the bed was simply a trigger. What is clear is this: the Tallman family suffered real psychological and physical trauma. Their testimonies are consistent, their pain genuine, and the house still stands. The Tallman House is not famous like Amityville, but in many ways that makes it more terrifying. Because it's ordinary, unremarkable. It teaches us that evil doesn't need a castle or a graveyard. Sometimes, it just needs a secondhand bed. And if something like that can happen in Wisconsin, it can happen anywhere. You may think you're safe, that your house is just a house. But what if it isn't? What if something has already moved in? What if it's waiting, just beyond the light? If this story disturbed you, You're not alone. We bring you real horror, real accounts, documented cases of the unexplained. And this is just the beginning. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, because the darkness doesn't rest, and neither do we.